Imagine being just 9 years old, sitting on a cracked plastic chair outside a gas station in the fading light of autumn, clutching the only photograph that proves your family ever existed, and realizing no one's coming back for you. That was the moment Tommy Mills' childhood ended. As the last car rolled out of Murphy's gas station in the Appalachian Valley, the chill of the mountain wind crept under his thin jacket, but the deeper cold was inside him. His mom had told him to wait while she used the restroom. That was 6 hours ago. The photograph in his hand was creased down the middle, splitting his smiling family in half, just like reality had done. He'd spent the day watching travelers pass, laughing families, road-tripping teenagers, couples sharing snacks. Nobody saw the small boy sitting alone with dirt under his fingernails and a heart full of questions. By the time the sun bled into the horizon, Tommy made a decision that would rewrite his destiny. He slipped away from the gas station, carrying nothing but a torn photo and stubborn hope. The mountains didn't promise safety, but they promised silence. In that silence, a scared boy would build something the world had never seen. What no one could imagine that night was that 3 years later, the same boy would stand beneath a stained glass window of his own making, in a home that defied logic, technology, and everything people believed about survival. But before that miracle came the wilderness. The first night nearly broke him. Tommy crawled under an old railroad bridge with nothing but newspaper and damp cardboard to keep out the cold. The October air bit through his jacket like knives. Coyotes howled in the distance. Owls called from trees he couldn't see. His stomach growled until it hurt. But when dawn arrived, painting the mountain tops gold and purple, something shifted. For the first time in months, no one was yelling, no one was drunk, no one was crying about bills. The world was quiet, and in that quiet, Tommy felt something unexpected: freedom. Over the next weeks, he stumbled deeper into the wilderness. Hunger taught him where to find food. Cold taught him where to seek shelter. He discovered an abandoned logging camp with rusted tools, broken ropes, and forgotten supplies. To anyone else, it was junk. To Tommy, it was treasure. He used rotting boards to build his first lean-to, learned to strip bark to tie beams together, and sharpened stones to make cutting tools. His proudest find was a hand-carved wooden spoon, smooth, perfectly balanced. That night he carved his own name into the handle. It was the first time he'd owned something in this new life. Winter was brutal. Nights stretched endlessly, winds howled through the valley, but he learned to build fires, trap small animals, and find edible greens by frozen creeks. Day by day, a lost boy was transforming into a survivor. And survival, for Tommy, wasn't just about making it to the next morning. It was about learning to belong to a world that no longer had a place for him. It happened on a spring morning. Tommy was following a deer trail through thick underbrush when he pushed aside a curtain of wild grapevines and stepped into a grove that felt like it had been waiting for him all along. Ancient oak trees stood in a perfect circle, their trunks rising like living pillars into a vaulted canopy. Shafts of sunlight spilled through the leaves, painting the forest floor gold. A spring bubbled softly at the grove's edge. It was quiet, hidden, and perfect. In that moment, Tommy stopped being just a survivor. He became a dreamer. That night, as the fire crackled, he pulled out a piece of bark and a charcoal stub and began sketching what he saw in his mind. Not a rough shelter, but a home. A real home. Over the coming months, he scavenged relentlessly. Corrugated metal, broken chairs, wooden pallets, glass panes, pipes. Everything people threw away in the valley below became raw material for his vision. He used a broken wheelbarrow to haul pieces up the trail at night, learning the rhythms of towns like a ghost. He wasn't just building walls, he was building a future, one that belonged to no one but him. But the mountains test those who dare to claim them. The storm came without warning, black skies, howling winds, and a wall of rain that slammed through the forest like a beast. In minutes, the half-built skeleton of Tommy's dream cracked and twisted. Metal sheets tore loose, wooden beams splintered like toothpicks. A violent gust sent a roofing panel spinning, slamming him against an oak. Pain seared through his shoulder, but he kept fighting, dragging what he could beneath a rocky overhang. That night, soaked, shivering, and exhausted, he clutched an old radio he'd found on a scavenging run. Through the static came a tornado warning. Down in the valleys, families were sheltering together. Tommy was alone. But as the wind roared through the grove, the ancient oaks stood their ground. And when dawn broke, so did a truth inside him. He could either let the storm define him or forge something stronger. He picked through the wreckage with numb fingers, salvaging what he could. The blueprint was gone, but the vision was not. Over the next weeks, he rebuilt with smarter joinery, anchored beams to living trees, and designed walls to bend, not break. The boy who'd once built to survive was now building to endure. 2 years into his hidden life, something changed. Among the storm debris near the valley road, Tommy found a child's drawing, a simple picture of a house with a crooked chimney and stick figures holding hands. At the bottom it read, "My family, Sarah, age 7. It hit him harder than any storm. That drawing reminded him of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel: connection. He pressed it between bark to keep it safe. From that day on, his building changed. He carved extra space into the design, imagined windows framing views others might one day share. Then came the footprints near his grove. A stranger had been watching. A folded note waited with a small stone weighted beneath a rock. "You are not alone, your work is beautiful." That stranger was Elena Vasquez, a structural engineer and search and rescue coordinator. She wasn't a threat. She saw him. She offered him something Tommy never expected, a chance to make his home legal, real. But with that offer came a choice: stay hidden in the shadows or step into the light. The decision was forced when smoke filled the valley. A massive wildfire roared up the mountainside, eating everything in its path. The radio crackled with frantic evacuation orders. Tommy climbed to his lookout and saw walls of flame moving fast. But his home was built different, anchored to oaks framed in metal wrapped in salvaged aluminum. It was a fortress. As the fire pushed closer, 3 firefighters stumbled into his grove, faces smeared with soot, lungs heaving. They'd been trapped when the winds shifted. Tommy didn't hesitate. He opened his door, guided them inside. The grove held. The fire screamed past. The metal walls reflected the heat. The spring-fed water kept the roots alive. When morning came, the forest around them was charred black, but Tommy's sanctuary stood untouched. The captain radioed out their coordinates, calling the place a miracle. That night, as they sat safe inside the house he'd built from trash and stubbornness, Tommy realized something powerful. He hadn't just survived the world. He'd built something that could save it. The next morning, a helicopter cut through the smoky air. Sheriff Carson stepped out holding a missing person flyer, Tommy's face at 9 years old, smiling in a life that no longer existed. Beside him was Elena Vasquez. Reporters weren't far behind. In hours, the boy who had been a ghost became a headline. The mountain boy who built a miracle home. News vans crowded valley roads. Drones hovered. Architects analyzed his salvaged joinery and fireproof designs. Environmentalists called it a blueprint for the future. But for Tommy, it wasn't fame. It was the weight of being found. Sheriff Carson had procedures, social services had rules, but Alina placed legal papers in his hands, permits, education, grants, options that meant his grove could become something official, not a secret, a legacy. In the weeks that followed, the grove transformed again. This time not by storms or fire, but by people. Engineers came to study it. Architects came to learn from it. The stained glass window Tommy had made from discarded bottles became a symbol of what's possible when someone refuses to give up. What began as a broken boy's refuge had become a beacon of resilience and sustainable design. But Tommy never forgot the first night under that bridge, or the wooden spoon, or Sarah's drawing. He wasn't just building a house. He was building proof that abandoned doesn't mean forgotten, that lost doesn't mean gone, that a single kid with nothing can build something the whole world will remember. As sunlight painted his walls in every color, Tommy whispered, "This isn't just mine anymore." Headphone, if this story inspired you, hit subscribe, tap that bell icon, and share it with someone who needs hope. Tomorrow, I've got another story that'll keep you listening from the first second to the last.